help on the way for Cloudy Bay.
It's a national government responsibility.
Hagen Police zone in on healthy living. And Monagi ready for World Championships.
This is National EMTV News with Meriba Tulo.
A very good evening. Thank you for joining us. This is Thursday's news. The road to Cloudy Bay, which has been closed to public motor vehicles and only accessible by four-wheel drives, is expected to be fixed soon. EMTV News getting a response from the member for Abao, Sepuka Temu, who was attending the first provincial assembly for Central Province. Sepuka said it was the government's national highway and it was their responsibility to fix the national highway road. He went on to say he has negotiated for the contractor to fix the road, and once work begins, the road should be fixed in 3 weeks. This comes after people from Cloudy Bay have been walking the stretch from Kikinaone village to Kapari for over 10 months.
Hey, go to me 22.
My highway is a national road. It's not my job.
It's been checked since last November, 10 months now.
Yeah. Can you get the comments right? The Magi Highway is a national road and therefore it's a national government responsibility. My job is to negotiate with the Minister for Works and the Secretary for Works, who have now, I have secured a contract. First part payment check was given last week, and the contractor is moving fuel up now and also gravel pit. And so while everybody on Facebook, including MTV, has been blaming me, it's actually the national government responsibility. And so we've negotiated successfully, and a contractor is now, you may have seen drums of fuel going up the highway. And our challenge now is to secure a gravel pit, the right material, because the last contract given by Works on that particular road between Kupiano Tenef and my village Kapari, that was badly done by a contractor. And so when the rain came, it damaged very easily. So I hope that this contractor with the Works engineer supervision should be able to be supervised properly. So I'm calling upon the Works engineers in the central and headquarters to supervise the contractors so that they do it according to the technical standards that they know best.
Central Province has a new Deputy Governor, Willie Vave, who was elected during the Central Provincial Assembly this week. He replaces Aroma Coast President Desmond Byra, who has held the position for 10 years. Central Governor Robert Agarobe, after the election of the Deputy Governor, told LLG presidents and members of the Provincial Assembly that they are expected to participate fully as legislators. The Governor is hoping to pass laws for the province to stop the moving of the provincial boundary by the National Capital District Commission.
After 10 years in office as the Aroma Coast LLG president, Desmond Byra was outseated by Koyari LLG president Willie Vave, and the vote 18-5.
Honorable Willie Vave, 18.
The former deputy governor not looking too happy with the outcome, but the outgoing deputy governor and incoming did shake hands in the end.
I'm very honored to be elected as the deputy governor of Central Province by a lot of very mature and long-serving members of the Provincial Assembly and leaders in the office there also. Thank you very much for all the work.
Some of you sitting here have made commitment to support me. And this is not eventually today, which is, I for one, I see as you're not honest already. Dishonest.
The central governor, after the election of the deputy governor, called on the 16 LLG presidents to perform to the expected capacity of a president.
You are now a public property of your local level governments and Central Province.
Your actions must therefore be for the good of public interest. Your conduct, both in private and public, must uphold the image and integrity of the office you swore to uphold today.
Governor Agarobe asking the presidents to put the people first regardless of their political affiliation.
All presidents of the 16 local level governments, the 4 national members of parliament, and the nominated members to engage in constructive debate, discussions, and to pass conducive legislations for the development of our province. For a long while now, no constructive debates and passage of legislation have been made in this assembly.
The governor going on to urge the presidents to develop Central Province as there has not been much tangible development since independence.
Intellectual and vibrant human resources to the national and provincial public service. We continue to provide the natural resources and create businesses for the growth and expansion of Port Moresby City. We have done this at the expense of our people losing their land, our people missing out on business opportunities, and our people eroding their culture and traditional heritage, especially the Motukoi Tabuans.
Adelaide Sirox Kari, National MTV News.
Police in Western Highlands province are getting back to healthy living as a #1 rule for the disciplined force. For the first time in more than 20 years, the RPNGC in Western Highlands launched a week-long health awareness program. The program, involving policemen and women attending health workshops, undergoing medical checkups, and making bold decisions to live healthy.
The week-long health program for police and their families was officially opened yesterday by Assistant Commissioner of Police, Eastern and Commander Nema Mondiai. As a disciplinary force, they need such programs to raise awareness on healthy lifestyle and its pros and cons. ACP Nema Mondiai says even though health and fitness is a part of their training, it has been ignored long enough, and this program is a comeback to keeping fit.
So we are doing this passing to keep ourselves fit so that we can start longer time physically. Now see our children grow.
All disciplined forces must be physically and mentally fit. However, in PNG, health studies shows that many of them are not physically fit, and some end up in hospitals for diabetes, obesity, and are dying of lifestyle diseases. ACP Mondiai stressed the need for improving police gyms or fitness facilities to involve them in active fitness training.
I have so far lost too many men since 2016. We not talk years before that because they were not we not come here.
Western Highlands Provincial Police Commander Jacob Kamiak says health needs to be a priority for police if they want to live long and serve the country, not only to the police officers but also for their wives, husbands and children.
Look, help people out, check people out, find out exactly what are the sick people like that, what are the problem people like that. No good hygiene stuff. Time of checking your food and talk something.
The team of doctors and health workers came prepared to give health talks each evening and will be providing health checks afterwards.
May just a message that we go out to public to know that health is important.
The Health Week is supported by the Seventh-day Adventist Church and will continue for the rest of the week. Gwenda Baba, National MTV News, Mount Hagen.
To Parliament now, and more calls have been made to privatize the public transport system. In a heated debate amongst MPs and Transport Minister William Sam, Tambul Nabilia MP Windaki called for the government to subsidize funding for PMV operators, saying a workshop and fixed rates of travel must be set up. In response, Minister Sam said this issue is long overdue. However, the government will act according to the best interest of road transport providers. The minister also said a proper travel transit system will also be in place to ensure road users abide by road safety rules.
You give a workshop. You give a workshop. Now fuel subsidy. Now you talk us one policy, me sagarim basem, all the student them affect Afe music give lol PMB operators to or not. You put your money, you put your budget of PMB. Taxis. Now, Mr. Speaker, in general, most city can calablo taxi come up. Set control, I'm pick no door control more. Give nothing license number no stop. Control it, manage it.
Declaration is like issues, and then we find a good way forward. For example, MIPLA must making this too-light concept illegal. To make it illegal, we must have facilities in Ley, Goroka, and say Hagen, so that our road users must go learn how to mallo. Now, service providers, owners of business, they can calculate that into their fee structure, so that drivers go mallo, namel, have enough rest, and move forward or return trip one kind.
You're watching National EMTV News. We go for a first break and we're back with more right after these messages. Welcome back to National EMTV News. Still in Parliament, the member for Mosby Northwest, Semekere Marauta, has raised concerns over alleged misuse of mineral resources stabilization funds. Semekere highlighted 3 issues in which funds were alleged to be misused or diverted to other projects by MRDC. The Prime Minister in response said all matters are before police and has ordered for a report to be submitted to his office by the MRDC.
10 million kina of petroleum resources Kopi Landowner Trust funds were used by MRDC without the approval of the Board of PRG. 100 million kina grant by the state to Petroleum Resources Kudubu, Star Mountain landowners and the Fly River provincial government to be spent on projects of their choice. That was the condition of this grant, of their choice, were diverted by MRDC for other purposes. Serious allegations concerning the initial investment appraisal of the Star Mountain Hilton Hotel. I have heard that the costs were overestimated, suggesting leakage and corruption later on, and the rate of return figures were highly inflated in order to make investments look more profitable.
Landowner Trust, those issues are very specific in nature. I will get MRDC to furnish me to the Office of Prime Minister the response pertaining to those specific allegations. But look, to summarize, MRDC is a public institution that holds in trust funds for beneficiary groups, the landowners and their children and future children. So it is incumbent upon them to furnish to us the report, and I will ask them in the first instance. And I intend using this question as an opportunity to report back to the country through the Parliament as to the status of MRDC and status of what has happened in MRDC as far as managing landowner funds are concerned.
Concerns over government checks bouncing in banks was raised by Gulf Governor Chris Haiveta in Parliament. The governor said a check of 3 million kina was presented to the province as infrastructure grants last year, but to date the province is not able to access these funds. He directed his questions to Finance Minister Charles Abel.
Can you assure me and the people of my province that the next check that you give to me is not going to bounce? 1, and 2, infrastructure development grants are under development agreements for various projects. How is it that some checks bounce and others don't?
And there is a process there in place that we've put in to try and ensure this doesn't happen. It goes through a budget management committee process with our public servants after being advised by the debt management committee, which comprises all the relevant departments, and they're working on ensuring that when checks are issued, it is against actual cash in bank. I encourage all members of government that when checks are received, that please you must present those checks as soon as possible to the bank so that the process doesn't catch up with you in terms of other checks that are coming through the system. and we develop a check float out there, which can be quite large. That is a large number of government checks sitting out there that are not banked, and it makes it even more difficult to manage cash flow when this check float continues to increase. So, Deputy Speaker, we're working on this particular issue, and once again I apologize to the Governor. We'll make sure that it is resolved as we continue to improve the system. I think about 24 months ago, the check bouncing issue was quite becoming worse, and I believe it has improved significantly. And as Finance and Treasury gets the system in order.
In an effort to gauge the interest from potential satellite service providers, PNG DataCo today held a workshop on the potential of PNG-owned satellite services. According to Communications Secretary John Avira, whilst the idea of having dedicated PNG satellite service is not new, this idea has again found support under the Marape-Stephen government. With PNG set to welcome faster land and sea internet services within the next 12 months, the options of the country hosting a satellite is also being seriously considered to add more value to communication users in PNG, especially in rural areas.
For government is to provide the infrastructure that, as we know, most of our population at the districts, and in terms of cable and terrestrial or microwave to those districts are quite difficult because we don't have the road infrastructure or access to those districts. Obviously, through DataCo, the network they are currently embarking on is through land and sea. So the government has given the direction for us to look at launching a satellite for PNG to alleviate some of our needs in terms of the bandwidth to service our communication needs.
As part of preparations towards the referendum, the Bougainville Referendum Commission has provided an update on its activities towards this important event. According to Chief Referendum Officer Mauricio Claudio, the 6-week extension granted by both the national government and autonomous Bougainville governments provide an opportunity to ensure that all aspects of the vote are ready. Writs for the Bougainville referendum will be issued on the 27th of this month, with polling to begin on November the 23rd.
Sample ballots that may mislead.
In providing a status report on preparations by the Bougainville Referendum Commission, Chief Referendum Officer Mauricio Claudio said that given a recent 6-week extension agreed to by both the national and autonomous Bougainville governments, preparations are now on track for this historic exercise.
The budget has remained the same, 27.8, despite the 6-week extension, and this is a reflection of the BRC's commitment to have a lean and frugal operation. And the budget has remained the same despite the need now to offer voting services to that substantial number of people who enrolled in, outside Bougainville, but within the national territory, those 11,000 NRBs that I mentioned earlier.
With voter enrollment now complete, the BRC is now embarking on a public display of the referendum roll to allow for eligible voters to check if their names are on the roll to vote. During this time, the BRC is also commencing the registration of interest groups, observers and media for the referendum period.
Certainly we won't have any final or near final numbers until after the issue of writs, because as you know, phase 3 continues and people can still enroll up until the 27th of September, which is the issue of writs, approved by the Board of Commissioners, by the BRC Board of Commissioners, and it sets out expectations and guidelines for this canvassing, for these activities that I mentioned before. It also sets expectations on the media when it comes to the coverage of these processes.
Given these developments, the BRC is confident that the official referendum process will proceed smoothly, with the issue of writs on Friday, 27th September, with polling to commence November the 23rd. The BRC expects counting to be completed within 2 weeks, with the results to be provided to the Governor-General in December.
The BRC is not at liberty to constrain the political rights of any individual, any PNG national, to campaign during the Bougainville referendum.
This is National MTV News. We'll go for another break. When we come back, we'll take a look at stories making headlines overseas. Welcome back to the news. Turning overseas now, Hurricane Dorian's death toll in the Bahamas has risen sharply as rescue teams struggle to reach decimated regions. At least 20 are dead, with tens of thousands in need of immediate aid.
Having lived through the nightmare that annihilated these islands, survivors are now in the grip of an acute humanitarian crisis. 70,000 people here are without food or clean water, and while the US Coast Guard is working to pluck survivors from this apocalyptic landscape, many remain missing. The death toll, now 20, expected to keep rising.
You just can't endure or go through a devastation like this with that minimal death.
And this is what the Bahamas endured, screaming 350-kilometre-per-hour winds when Dorian made landfall.
This couldn't have been a Cat 5. If they had a category for this had to have been like an 8.
Dorian's storm surge at least 6 feet.
And I got on top of the kitchen counter and just watched my whole house come apart.
And we're hearing simply harrowing stories from survivors.
We were doing all right until the water kept coming up, and my poor little wife got hypothermia, and she was standing on top of the kitchen cabinets until they disintegrated. And then I kept with her, and she just drowned on me. I'm so sorry. I know.
Some areas in these two hardest hit islands remain too dangerous to access. Elsewhere, roads are blocked by boats. This plane lies on the side of the road, and the Freeport Airport destroyed. Hospitals in the worst affected areas are overwhelmed, now makeshift shelters.
Every hallway is full.
But amid the chaos and heartache, some moving moments too. Some families reunited after Dorian split them apart. But Dorian remains a dangerous storm. Regaining strength in the past few hours, it's now a Category 3 hurricane, and tonight it's lashing the US coastline, strengthening south of Charleston and threatening the low-lying areas along the Carolina coastline with flash flooding from storm surge. So it could be several days yet before Dorian is done.
The search for bodies from a scuba charter boat fire off California has been suspended, with 14 people still unaccounted for. Investigators are studying the video to try to establish why only the skipper and his crew survived.
This newly released Coast Guard video shows the Conception still burning as crews rushed in to help. Today, the official word inevitable, but still devastating.
Sadly, no additional survivors have been found.
It is never an easy decision to suspend search efforts.
Among the 34 believed dead, an entire family, 3 young women, sisters from the community of Stockton, their father and stepmother. A school in Santa Cruz is mourning the loss of 2 of its students.
Our hearts and thoughts are with the families and victims and those yet missing, particularly those of our students and parents on board.
Also missing, Christy Finstad, 41 years old, a diving instructor who organized the trip aboard the Conception and well known in the diving community. At a makeshift memorial, this woman says her daughter was on board.
She just wanted to follow her dream of the ocean. Never thought I would ever have to go through this.
It's still unknown what sparked the fire, but we're learning more. The ship had passed its most recent safety inspection, and there were 2 firefighting systems on board. Still, below deck, all passengers were trapped. The stairs and escape hatch both in flames. The crew who were up top jumped and were rescued by Bob and Shirley Hansen.
I said, well, you should have had 2 exits there. And he says, we do. He said, but the one in aft was already on fire also. So they were just trapped in there.
Family members attended today's news conference looking for answers. They now believe this fire may have started on the 2nd level of that boat above the sleeping quarters. Also today, families are giving DNA samples to help identify the victims, and we have been watching as the FBI has carted away evidence gathered at the scene.
An Australian man is facing years in prison in Singapore after a wine bottle was thrown from his balcony. Singapore takes a tough line on littering, but in this case, the crime was even greater. It wasn't just the bottle that was thrown, but that it hit a man way below and killed him.
At the state courts in Singapore, a case of what the locals call killer litter crime. Melbourne IT contractor Andrew Gosling charged over a wine bottle dropping from the 7th story of the Spotterswood Park apartments onto the barbecue area below. 73-year-old delivery driver and father of 4, Nasiri Sunni, was hit on the head and died the next day. Residents say he was some distance from the building, suggesting someone threw it.
It just seems very unlikely for a bottle to accidentally fall at such a strange trajectory and that it would hit the top of his head.
Police went from door to door interviewing residents, showing the wine bottle, a 2016 Italian red, and asking for fingerprints. 7 News understands Mr Gosling, a contractor for Australian explosives company Orica, surrendered last Wednesday.
He decided to surrender himself to the police, and we dropped him off at the police station. Since then, he's fully prepared to cooperate with the police investigations.
In high-rise Singapore, litter falling from buildings is a major issue. There were 434 cases of killer litter last year, the last fatal incident 5 years ago.
It's the first time they've heard of something so big striking someone or even falling out of a window.
Mr Gosling faces 5 years jail if convicted.
The controversial extradition bill that sparked months of violence in Hong Kong is said to be dropped completely. But far from being at peace, pro-democracy protesters are marking it a clear move too little, too late.
It's not over yet. Another violent standoff rattling Hong Kong just hours after a major backdown by the government.
The government will formally withdraw the bill in order to fully allay public concerns.
The concession not enough to satisfy people on the street.
Now she finally speaks, but there are so many other problems in society which should not have appeared. For instance, the abuse of power by police.
Hong Kong people won't accept this. The bill, introduced in April, would have allowed criminal suspects to be extradited to mainland China. It triggered nearly 3 months of protests, which often turned violent. The bill was suspended in June, but not fully thrown out. Leaders today recognising the violence and wider expectations have become a bigger issue than the legislation itself.
It is obvious to many that this contentment extends far beyond the bill.
The scars and wounds are still bleeding in Hong Kong. She thinks that she can use some garden hose to put out a hill fire.
One of the most violent clashes saw 45 people attacked, including protesters and civilians. A panel of international experts is joining the official investigation, including a New Zealander.
The study aims to ascertain the facts, to assess the police handling of protests.
But the pro-democracy movement wants an independent inquiry. It's still a sticking point, and there's another.
The protest will continue until the day we have free election.
Hong Kong officials say they're willing to listen, but whether today's backdown is enough to bring peace to the island remains to be seen.
Facebook is considering following Instagram and hiding the number of likes on people's posts. Studies suggest this kind of instant feedback can boost self-confidence, but it can also cause people to compare themselves destructively.
They're the big names who get big likes.
I say thank you guys so much for the incredible love.
Most of us also keep a count of our likes.
It was around like 400 or 500.
150 max?
I think it was 1,000.
There's no denying watching the popularity of a post can give us a bit of a boost.
It's a little bit of a guilty pleasure. It feels good. You're like, oh cool, people like what I'm putting up.
Facebook is hinting at plans to eliminate the popularity contest, hiding the number of likes on posts.
I think it's a good thing, definitely.
The number of likes a post gets is seen as a measure of success. By hiding them, Facebook is removing any social pressure.
With younger people, there's this competitive edge with likes.
Rejection in the digital world can sting just as much as in the physical world.
You can feel kind of average when no one reacts to it.
Instagram has already dropped the number of likes in several countries, including New Zealand.
it's taking the pressure off a lot of people. It's taking the pressure off having popularity, and it means, I think, that people can be more comfortable posting things.
If Facebook does the same, it will change the way businesses and influencers use the platform.
What businesses need to do now is understand their target audiences a lot more and start to ask questions and start to show up on social media and deliver.
Giving Facebookers the chance to share what they love and care less about if it's liked.
Here with Thursday's news, we go for another break. When we come back, some sporting updates in Trukai Sports.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. We begin with Rugby League and the Central Province Premier League, which is a pathway competition into the Intercity Cup competition, is set to start its 10-week competition very soon. The competition covers the 4 districts of Central Province and will have all the best district teams taking part in various locations. The format of the competition is spread out and needs financial backing. Today, Hardware House, a company under the CPL Group, sponsored the competition to get things moving.
CPL Group of companies under the Hardware House store has come on board to support the Central Province Premier League, or CPPL, for this season. The Central Province Premier League and its administration and players in the competition were present at the Hardware House in Port Moresby to receive their cheque totaled at 50,000 kina.
CPL Group,
Hardware House Chief Executive Officer Navin Raju was pleased that the company was in support of sports and rugby league in general.
It's a strong commitment to Central Province Rugby League and to the development of our youth, and that's the reason we are all here. This event speaks for the commitment that all of us in the province hold for sports. I'm sure that we will witness athletic performance of the highest quality over the course of the championship. Do your best and compete in the spirit of sportsmanship and fair play.
The Central Province Premier League has never had a corporate sponsor since it began, and the sponsorship was welcomed by the league chairman Jack Kedea. Sponsorship was also given by the Central Province Governor, with the cup now called the Hardware House Agarobe Cup.
It's very, very important to first time in history to secure a corporate sponsorship to drive the program in Central Province. And I am very proud to have our partnership Hardware House. You know, Hardware House, a lot of people talk about, building materials and all that. And Central Province is not far, it's just here. I'm pretty sure through this program, you will see a lot of investment, you will see a lot of opportunities that people will work with.
The Central Province Premier League is for the people of Central Province and is an elite competition for the districts in Central Province.
8 district teams. So for Abao, we have Amazon Bay, Arama Coast, Rigo, Rugby League, Erie, because it's a big electorate. We have Erie East, Erie West, and Koyari, and Buria. We have Koilala, and so there are 8 district teams competing.
The competition has a new format and does not include teams outside of the district of Central Province.
We changed the format, the concept. It's only 8 district teams and it's only Central Province. We are not allowing any other outsiders to compete.
Fidelis Sukina National, EMTV Sports.
It was a sold-out crowd during the final series at the Oil Search National Football Stadium. The crowd turned up to cheer on the top 6 teams that made it into the finals of the Intercity competition. And with the grand final set for this Sunday between the Lace Snacks Tigers and the Croton Hella Wigmen, Papua New Guinea National Rugby League competition manager Stanley Hondina announced the ticket prices and thanked all those that helped throughout the season.
Congratulate the top 6 that made it. For the last 4 weeks we've had those 6 battling out and 4 have gone. Congratulations to Hella Wigmen and Lace Snacks Tigers, and we wish them well in the grand final as well. I think they deserve it. They've worked hard for it, and here they are, so may the best to win. The ticket prices are going for 50 kina at the grandstand. The 2 wings sides of the grandstand, 35 kina, the west wings. The eastern stand for 30 kina. and the north and south for 15 kina. Club lounge 100 kina, excluding catering. So those are the ticket prices, and the tickets are already selling. Like I said, who wants to come and watch the game, grab a copy and come and support. But let's all support the game. May the best team win, come the finals, and lift the cup up. And we'll all be winners as long as we support and partake in the game that we all love and call the national sport of this nation, Rugby League.
To athletics now, and 24-year-old Adrian Monagi is preparing for the International Athletics Association Federation World Championships at the end of this month. She replaces another injured PNG champion, Reli Kaputin.
An early morning on the track beats a boring sleep-in. In fact, for young Adrian Monagi, every second of a time counts. The bright and early dedication on track in her favorite 100-meter hurdles has paid off. Only just this week, she got a call-up from Athletics PNG to replace incumbent PNG champion athlete Reli Kaputin, who succumbed to injury.
I didn't expect to be nominated. I was expecting other competitions like on my proposal, but after they reviewed my proposal, all the executives, they came up with a decision to nominate me. So when I went in for the meeting, they discussed the proposal with me, and then they told me that we nominate you to go for the IAAF World Championships. I couldn't believe it. I was so excited.
Monagi isn't a new face in athletics. She's competed in junior and senior events on home soil and abroad. She earned a silver medal in the recent Samoa Pacific Games in her event.
I went to the IAAF World Junior Championships and then 2 Commonwealth Games, the one in Glasgow 2014 and then 2018 Gold Coast. So the experience is there. It's very good to compete against other countries and be competitive.
The weight is ever great on her shoulders as she prepares to represent Papua New Guinea in the coming Athletics World Championships in Doha, Qatar. Bradley Valenaki, National EMTV Sports.
Don't go anywhere. Trukai Sports will continue with more right after these messages.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. To some sporting news abroad, and the All Blacks basketballers have kept their playoff hopes alive at the World Cup in China. The New Zealanders scored an impressive win, 93-83 over Montenegro, although the challenge does not get any easier in the next pool game.
Just when New Zealand basketball needed Corey Webster's long-range shooting to fire again, it did.
Webster from deep.
Webster hit 6 of his 8 3-point shots, top scoring with 25 points.
Webster again.
You know, a proud moment for our team to beat a team like Montenegro, any team that you face.
Montenegro's ranked 10 places ahead of the Tall Blacks in the world rankings. Not that you'd know it, with Orlando Magic NBA All-Star Nikola Vucevic in their ranks. The win impressing those back at the Breakers base in Auckland.
Certainly if you looked at the payrolls of the two respective teams, it also would be classed as an upset.
The Tall Blacks not only had a big lead at half-time, but Montenegro also had their coach kicked out of the game for a second technical foul. In the end, Zvezdan Mitrovic's expulsion fired his team up, fighting back in the third quarter.
Vucevic for 3 at the top of the key. Knocks it down.
The NBA star leading the charge, but Corey Webster wasn't done. A set play gaining massive momentum for the Tall Blacks.
Illy now kicks it back over. Webster for 3. Wide open look. What a shot! Corey Webster, are you kidding me?
That was the most impressive thing for me, is how intelligently he played, and that led to the great efficient scoring.
And Montenegro never made it back to threaten, as the Kiwis bench also stood out in the 93-83 win. An even bigger upset over Greece this Friday, complete with NBA superstar Giannis Antetokounmpo, and the Tall Blacks would make the second round of the World Cup.
It's a near 7-foot amazing athlete, great rim attacker, not a particularly good shooter, so you have to take your chances there, and they really have to have someone big, physical and mobile to be able to deal with that.
If Corey Webster and his teammates can deal with the Greek freak and hit shots like this, anything is possible.
Ayad Masood is a Syrian refugee living in New Zealand who wanted to swim for the international refugee team in next year's Tokyo Olympics. That dream is now one step closer to becoming a reality.
Misuse's journey to become an elite swimmer has taken him from war-torn Syria to a pool in Auckland, and after years of not really feeling like he belonged, one email changed that.
You have been awarded a Refugee Athlete Support Scholarship. We made it, David, we made it!
The scholarship from the International Olympic Committee is almost like them funding Iad to swim, a monthly allowance to help cover his living costs so he can focus on training.
Right now I got at least 2-3 problems less, so that made me feel good, that made me feel light, and the lighter you are, the faster you swim.
As a refugee living in New Zealand with no family, Iad has had to support himself. That means as well as training and studying full-time for an engineering degree, he's had to work to pay the bills. Before he could afford a car, he used to spend up to 2 hours walking to and from the pool each day.
It relieves the worry of am I going to be able to buy next week's groceries? And so that provides an environment which is certainly beneficial to his swimmer.
More importantly for Iad is the fact he's now eligible for selection for the IOC's refugee team for the Tokyo Olympics. That makes sacrifices like leaving his family and moving halfway around the world worth it.
It doesn't matter what your circumstances is. If you're keen to do something, really good at it, don't let anybody stop you.
After years of going it alone, Iad now finally knows he belongs to a team, and hopefully one he can represent in Tokyo.
Family pride is on the line in Saturday's afternoon test, not so much between the players, but rival coaches who just happened to be father and son.
Belated Father's Day reunion. Tonga's scrum coach Dan Cron calling on his father Mike at the All Blacks Hotel.
With the Super Rugby schedule, All Black schedule, and living in different cities, you've got to jump the opportunities when you're in the same city.
The pair shares a passion for the finer front row techniques, with Mike Cron, the scrum guru, at the forefront in his 37 years of coaching.
The game evolves, you know, so you keep moving. So no, I certainly don't feel my age, put it that way. No.
So you must have been, what, about 2 then when your father started coaching?
Yeah, well, some of the earliest memories I got is getting a bag of chips and a raspberry fizzy drink at Marist Albion, or Albion back then.
The former police detective and pie company part owner has prepared the All Blacks for more than 200 tests since 2004. But squaring off against his son makes his final home international even more meaningful.
Oh yeah, it's always special, but this is our 3rd time we've coached against each other. 2011 he was the coach with Tonga when the All Blacks played here.
And it was one of Dan's front rowers that scored Tonga's 2nd ever try against the All Blacks.
Yeah, I remember that. It was a pretty special moment. It was Sona got that for Tonga.
While their almost daily sharing of ideas is off limits this week, it's a coaching brotherhood for life.
It's quite cool too for a father and son, because if you didn't have this sort of common theme of the rugby, you'd probably ring each other once a month, wouldn't you, you know?
Some stories they were probably saving for dinner, with Tier 1 Dad probably picking up the tab.
And that's it for Trukai Sports this evening. Up next, we'll have the weather details for the next 24 hours.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by Money Plus. With you always.
A look at the weather forecast for the next 24 hours. First of all, in the southern region, fine weather expected in Port Moresby, Daru and Alota. Mostly fine for Kerma and Popondetta. To the Momasa region, a shower or 2 expected in Lae. Rain showers expected in Wau, Medang, Wewak and Vanimo. To the New Guinea Islands region, a shower or 2 expected in Kavieng. Rain and thunderstorms expected in Buka. Thundery showers in Lorengau, Kokopo, Rabaul and Kimbe. And to the Highlands region, all the major centres, Mount Hagen, Goroka, Kundiawa, Mendi and Wabek can all expect showers with early morning fog developing.
The weather update was proudly brought to you by Money Plus. With you always.
And that's the new sport and weather for today, Thursday, the 5th of September 2019. Don't go anywhere. Coming up in the next few minutes, the start of My Province, My Country, 44 years of independence. Our special MTV News production showcasing what's unique about our provinces and their development today. Our news team has been out and about in the country and they are back. Tonight we start off with Enga and Central Provinces. We hope you enjoyed on your number one to watch. But for now, on behalf of the MTV News team right around the country, pleasant viewing. Good night.